Welcome back to the Revenue Roadmap, where we talk about driving revenue and increasing profits in family law firms. I'm your host, Tyler Dolph, and with me today is Matthew Kowtko, the owner and managing attorney of Kowtko Law, serving Sarasota, Florida. Today, we learn about Matt's journey, and he helps us understand how he built his firm using an of counsel structure and also focusing on communication and fast response time with his clients. Really appreciate your time. Would love to start by just hearing your story. How were you able to go from Georgia to Sarasota to start your own firm? Give us a little history lesson here.
Well, if we only have 15 minutes, I'll have to shorten it. So graduated high school in 2004, went to Georgia Tech for mechanical and then ultimately aerospace engineering. I started working for a law firm in Atlanta, and this was 2005, 2006. He was a real estate attorney during the real estate boom, made a ton of money. I made some very bad choices. I won't get into it in the podcast. It's public knowledge, so I'm not hiding it, but had a drug addiction problem that ultimately ended up me leaving Georgia Tech. Saw the lawyer making money left, right, and upside down, and I thought that's what lawyers did. And I decided that I didn't want a desk job as an engineer, so I decided to come to Florida for law school. Ended up with a desk job. Go figure.
Was it the transition from engineering background to law? Were there some correlations there, connections? Was it easy to make that transition, or was it like totally opposite, right brain, left brain kind of deal?
So I actually think they're both left brain careers. They're both very logical based. And I think a lot of lawyers, I know we're going to get into pitfalls of young lawyers later. And one of the biggest things that I think the engineering background, albeit not having a degree, was the fact that it made you think logically and block. And it's not emotional. My wife is very emotional, very right brain, very artsy, and her and I see the world wildly different. And, trying to be able to get clients to get out of the right brain emotional mindset and approach problems from a very left brain logical perspective. At the end of the day, and I say this respectfully to my clients, they're not much. Their life is boiled down to an equitable distribution worksheet, an alimony spreadsheet, and a parenting plan. Their entire life is boiled down, and until they recognize that, you got problems. And I think that the engineering background really helped keep me in that very logical conclusion.
Create more of a just black and white scenario. This is what it is.
As sad as it is, and I tell my clients, and again, respectfully, that it's like a chess match. And you hire me to be your chess master. And you have to think logically and not emotionally.
Which is such a difficult thing to ask someone going through that really difficult time in their life.
Correct.
How do you do that?
And I'll tell you, family lawyers are as much therapists as they are lawyers.
We definitely agree with that. It's such a difficult situation, and it's a hard profession if you're not fully dedicated to helping people out in this time of crisis.
Yeah.
Did you always, after law school, did you decide to go out on your own right away, or did you work at a big firm?
Nope, went out on my own. So because I had about 2.5 years of experience working for a firm as an assistant in Atlanta, when I went to law school in 2011, I was doing an internship basically from the first semester, primarily criminal initially, and then it kind of merged into family. When I was waiting for I had a delay in my Florida bar application because of my past. I worked as an intern after graduating law school. It took me about 9 months before I passed the bar to the time I got clearance to practice. Worked at a family law firm full time. That was in Orlando. My then girlfriend, now wife, moved to Sarasota. So when I got my license, that was a really good transition because the lawyer at the time couldn't afford to bring on a staff attorney. So it ultimately fell that I moved in Sarasota. And I am not the type of person that works for other people. I've been yelled at way too many times in my life by HR departments that I didn't want to work for one.
And now you're head of HR, so it all works out.
Yeah, so whenever my employees complain about bad or inappropriate jokes, I tell them to go talk to HR.
I may or may not have a similar comment here at our business. So you started out on your own. You wanted to be an attorney. I think we've had this conversation a number of times on this show, that the realization that you now have to be an entrepreneur. You have to find an office. You have to understand what rent is and make payroll and pay bills is kind of like the furthest thing from being an attorney. How did you deal with that reality, and what were some of those early kind of learnings as you were building your own firm?
So luckily my dad, my family, we weren't very wealthy, but we were upper middle class, and my dad never gave me anything that didn't have a carrot on it. So as much as I hate him, as much as I hated him at 15, 16, 17, I had to buy my first car. He loaned me the money and made me pay it back. So I fortunately had a family that, as much as I hated them in my teenage years, taught me the responsibility of knowing that. So, when it came to things like rent, leases, and things of that nature, I already was lucky enough to have a family to teach me that, and the responsibility of knowing when bills are due. In the unique area of law, one of the biggest pitfalls that I ran into is I was too friendly with my clients. This was the right brain, left brain. Going back to that, was initially I wanted to help people so much that I forgot to bill them. That I would bill them initially a $2,500 retainer, and I'd never ask them for follow-up money. So I ended up, very early in my practice, within a year, I was up to 50, 60 cases, but wasn't making any money because I never forced my clients or never followed up on my clients on follow-up retainers or, pay your bill.
You are not the first person to admit that early mistake. It's so important that if you're going to run your own business, you have to be able to understand how you're making money and make sure that you're sending invoices so that you can actually pay your bills. What changed? Like, how did you overcome that? Did you get an accounting software? Did you have an assistant that started billing, or did you just say, "Hey, you put food on the table, so I better figure this out"?
Kind of all the above. So it worked out that I went through a couple of assistants over the years, and there was a point in time that a friend of mine had a son that finished law school, and he was very much a transactional guy. He was not a litigation guy. He wanted nothing to do with the courtroom. Brilliant lawyer, but not the litigation type. And me, I'm the type that I just say, throw together a motion that outlines generally what I want, and let's go to court and figure it out. We were with the yin and yang, and I hired him, and having a good assistant was extremely important. The money that I spent on him, probably for the first year and a half of having him on board, he probably made more than I did. But it was worth every penny because it made my life so much easier. I did get software, again, not an endorsement or a sponsorship, but I use QuickBooks, and it makes my life very easy. Connects everything to I spend maybe 5 or 6 hours a year on, getting all of my billing software or all of my software connected. My accountant just goes in there. All of my salaries are paid automatically. So, that took a couple years to do. And then when I actually stopped practicing law, not because I lost my license, it was a voluntary choice. Of course, all the lawyers laugh at that one.
Yes.
And I took a position managing an e-commerce business down in Bogota, Colombia. So I went and did that for about a year and a half, 2 years. When I came back, obviously my assistant had gone his other direction to a different firm. So I came back, and now for the past 3 years, I've been back fully practicing law and just really focused on minimizing my cases and maximizing my revenue.
I love it. Wow, that's interesting. So you took kind of a hiatus, if you will. You did the Michael Jordan go play baseball for a little bit, and then
didn't play baseball. I wish.
yeah, but I mean, like, you stepped away from the primary practice. Did you feel like when you came back, you were remotivated? Like, hey, I'm going to go all in and make this thing work and grow and scale? Or what was the reason behind coming back?
To some degree. So I have two of counsel attorneys that work with me. They got their own firm. for young lawyers, when you want to associate, make sure you know your bar rules on association and how to pay people properly. That's a big pitfall. I've seen a couple of my friends from law school make that mistake and end up with suspensions and sanctions and all kinds of things for bad associations with law barred attorneys. But when I came back, I already had the system already set up. My firm never ended. I still had two firm attorneys that worked for me. So my firm became residual revenue versus primary revenue. So when I came back, I just made the mindset of let's focus on quality over quantity. I don't have an assistant anymore. I have a secretary, but I don't have a legal assistant anymore. I do all my own legal work. And I tell people that I'm not the cheapest attorney in town, but you can get a hold of me in 24 hours. If I've learned anything from the 10 years I've been in practice is people want to be heard. And they would rather give you, my initial retainer 10 years ago was $2,500. Now I won't touch anything less than $5,000. And I have a third of the clients, and my clients are happier because I can usually get them in, barring trial weeks or, extraneous circumstances. The vast majority of the time, clients can come in and see me in 24, maybe 48 hours. I return calls usually the same day, if not the next day. I have gotten substantially less complaints in billing by doing that. And I'm billing them that much more.
Right. And so you've really found that the communication and time and response time has been a huge key to success.
Very much. And another thing is I learned to bill. Those 10-minute phone calls that you never bill for when you're driving, those add up to tens of thousands of dollars, if not $100,000+ a year in billables. And I came to the conclusion that if I have a client that's slightly upset about a bill, it's always easier, and you look empathetic if you waive portions of your bill than if you have to explain to them and say, well, remember, I didn't bill you for those 3 meetings in my office that was, $1,000, $1,500. Bill for everything ethically, bill for everything, and you could always waive it later. And then you look empathetic to the client versus trying to explain empathy to them.
100%.
Totally changes their perspective of your work.
And you look like the hero.
Yeah.
In the moment. That's great.
Yeah.
The of counsel attorneys is an interesting concept that we've heard a little bit about, and we don't necessarily utilize that structure at our firm at Sterling, but it is a structure that we're seeing more and more. What was it because you went to take on this other role that you leverage the of counsel structure, or talk to us about that choice and how it's working out?
So a lot of it had to do with just taxes. Because obviously if I have staff, one of my attorneys, he started on as an associated of counsel. He was never an employee of my firm. The other one initially was an employee of my firm for maybe 3 years. And her and I realized we were both paying astronomical amount in taxes between unemployment taxes, this taxes. She couldn't pass through, and she kept asking me, how do I make so much money without actually making money? Because on paper, I make very little money because I have all the deductions, I have pass-through income, I have all kinds of other things. So she decided, her and I both decided that it was better for her to go of counsel. So she started her own firm and we associated. And
does she work on the same type of cases as you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Everything is under the Kowtko Law Group umbrella. And then there is, I won't give you their names for their personal purposes because they don't actually advertise. There's a law firm A and law firm B, which associate by contract. And they basically everything comes into my firm, and all the billing goes through my firm, all the contracts go through my firm. Know your bar rules, though. I mean, I spent hours on the phone with the Florida bar making sure that my structure was legitimate, because it's not technically profit sharing, but then with associated, you can profit share. So make sure you know the respective state laws or state bar rules, because what may work in Florida may be entirely unethical in another state. Yeah. So, I'm not in any way endorsing or advising people to do this, but it works for me and it works for our firm. And the reason we did it was, I was paying her X number of dollars a month in salary, but then I was cutting out taxes and federal taxes. Now what she did is she went of counsel, and now I just pay her basically a subcontractor, which is untaxed revenue to her, and then she deals with it. Another thing I'd advise is get a really good CPA. Spending money on a CPA is worth every penny. The $5,000 or $6,000 a year you may spend on a CPA could save you tens of thousands of dollars in taxes.
100%. No, I totally agree with that. That's really interesting. And is your plan moving forward as you grow and scale to just get more of counsel attorneys to help you scale, or what's the future look like for you?
I'm kind of happy where I am. I mean, I have a 4-year-old son. I have a 4.5-year-old son. My wife's a teacher. I have a 17-year-old stepdaughter that's in the process of graduating high school and going to college. I'm right now satisfied where I am. There are large firms large by Sarasota standards in town that, have 8, 9, 10 lawyers that are large, again, by Sarasota standards, that I just don't want to get into that, because I think at that point, the attorneys that I know that I'm friends with that work at or own those firms, they spend more time on administration than they do law.
We talk about that all the time. When you are looking to scale your firm, you need to continue to run a business. You have to become a manager. You have to be able to lead people and lead other attorneys. And it's a different mindset. It's a different structure. And it takes a lot of effort to be able to do that. And I respect the fact that you're like, hey, listen, I got a practice I'm very proud of. I've been able to grow it to where I want to grow it. And you're in a great place. That's the American dream, really, right?
Yeah. And that doesn't mean I won't want to scale later on. But again, I also have to look at the market I'm in. I mean, I'm in Sarasota, Florida, where, with the second wealthiest county per capita in the country, only to Greenwich, Connecticut. The average age in Venice, Florida, on the south side is the oldest average age anywhere in the country, if not the world. And, just the population between Sarasota and Bradenton, which butt up against each other, we're only talking 1.3, I think 1.2, 1.3 million people. So you can't scale to like you have, where you have 30 some odd lawyers over 20 offices. It's just not feasible unless I really want to get into Tampa, which is a totally different market. I also think it's realistic to tell young people, know your market.
Right.
I've practiced in Miami. I've gone to Miami. It's a wildly different world that I practice here. I'm friends with the judges. I know them. I know their kids. I've met some of them I met their kids. You build a rapport. And, most important person in the court system is the judicial assistant. Never disrespect them. You disrespect them, they make your life impossible. They could do you great favors. That
is a great piece of advice. It's something that we've had to learn. I think the know your market is such an important point. We learned over the years and made all the mistakes in the world trying to set up offices in locations that we didn't do enough research on, and really how to develop a location strategy, because we want to continue to scale at our firm and open other offices. We had to be able to better understand market conditions and statistics and drive time and everything involved there. But to your point, if you're going to be in opening your own office, before you do that, you better understand what the market conditions are and what the population looks like and everything in between.
Yeah. And know your marketing company, because vet your marketing company. I spent tens, probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in the first couple of years on bad marketing companies. I've been with the same marketing company for probably 6 years now. I make 2 phone calls a year to update the market, to update zip codes or what's effective and not, and they've been brilliant.
That's great. I love it. Matt, I really appreciate your time today. As we are ending here, is there any additional pieces of advice for our audience as they're thinking about starting their own firm, going out on their own? What's some of those early lessons that we can help them avoid?
Bill your clients. Be respectful to your clients. Don't get emotionally involved with your clients. And I mean that, don't take it personally. At the end of the day, it's a job. That doesn't mean disrespect them, but understand that it's a job and you're a part of their life. And the best thing you could do is get out of their life. Let them move on with it. I tell my clients that I'm the most expensive friend you'll ever have, and you want me out of your life. Make a good deal, and be very respectful to judicial assistants. They can make or break a case without you even realizing it.
I love it. Matt, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. For all of our listeners, thank you for being here, and we will see you next time on the Revenue Roadmap. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about the counsel structure, make sure to check out this video we posted a few weeks ago, and we'll also add a link in our comments for those of you listening. And finally, if you're interested in being featured on the Revenue Roadmap and telling your story, please email us at tdolph, that's DOLPH, at revenueroadmap.law. Thanks, everyone, and have a great week.